As social media lit up over the possibility of the Green Bay Packers trading for a certain disgruntled Cowboys pass rusher, the team actually in Green Bay got good news on the injury front ahead of week 1.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Speaking of lineups, the Green Bay Packers got a group of their normal lineup players back to practice yesterday after the Packers made their final cutdowns and finalized their practice squad. We'll get to the practice squad bit of this coming up later. And of course, we will get to the speculation around the additions that the Packers could be making to this squad. I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll still talk about it. Jordan Love, a full participant in practice. That's important because even if he can go as a limited participant over the next week and a half before the Packers game, it would, and this is why the designation exists, limit him in the game. From everything to, can he make the handoff with the right hand? Can he make the proper fakes? Would they be limited in the ways that they could roll him out or boot him? Or is he more vulnerable in the pocket to a strip if that hand is not going to be 100%? It was wrapped in practice. He took snaps, but not snaps. So the basically solo snaps, a coach puts their hand on top of his hand. So, it's a standard quarterback thing. And then moves the ball from the ground up, simulating a snap. Not actually, Elton Jenkins snapping him the ball. As they were going through all of that. And so that's progress for Jordan Love. We also saw Jayden Reed and Dontavian Wicks return to practice, though it was reported Jayden Reed has not gotten to the point where he is running routes without pain, has that foot sprain. So even if he is ready to go week 1, he may not be 100%. Aaron Banks, he also returned to practice. Nate Hobbs, not there yet. And it seems like Nate Hobbs is the one that we have to be most concerned about at this point. Now, the Packers, they played the Lions twice last year with this group of defensive backs, with Carrington Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon, and Javon Bullard, with Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams, and they seem good to go there. Now, the Lions scored 30 points in the second of those meetings. That game was not at Lambeau Field. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's Jameson Williams. They traded Tim Patrick. Isaac Tisla has been someone that has Lions media at the very least very excited. Lions fans very excited. Fantasy football fans very excited. They're going to need a defensive backfield that's going to play well. So it'd be very nice to have Nate Hobbs. Of course, you spend the money on a player like that, you hope he's going to come in and positively impact your team. It's more important to me that this offense is ready to roll. The offense has to be good to go. The Lions are going to score on everybody. Everybody. They scored on everybody last year. The only way you're going to stop them from scoring is if you can turn them over. Now, we've talked about some of the deficiencies that they have this year. We don't know if the consistency with the play calling is going to be the same. We don't know if the interior of the offensive line is going to be the same. Coach Jags on our Locked On Packers squad show, live every Wednesday 7:15 Lambeau time, and then we'll be live after the game. Former Packers coach Jeff Jagosinski, he is big on this. It's players, not coaches, which is interesting because he's a coach. And he's like, no, it's still the players. The players have to go do the thing. And, you might see that as him shirking responsibility for what happens on the field. I see it the other way. I see him saying, look, we don't deserve the credit. Ultimately, the players do. The players are what make a team good or bad, not the coaches. He has, in fact, downplayed my version of the Lions 2025, in which they materially get worse. He's like, well, the players aren't materially worse. The place that's not true is on offense, where the offensive line is, I think, materially worse. I still don't think most teams are going to be able to stop Detroit. It's going to be, can you score enough to beat them? And can you get a timely turnover? One timely stop. The Packers last year needed one stop at the end of that game. And I believe if the Packers had gotten one stop at the end of the game, now they had taken the lead, got called back, they end up tying the game, and the Lions go down the field and kick the game-winning field goal. If the Packers had gotten that stop on fourth down, which was a reckless decision by the Lions, if they'd gotten that stop, Packers win that game. That's how close they were to beating the Lions in Detroit last year. That's the last time these two teams played, by the way. And the last time the Lions played, they racked up 500 yards of offense, but couldn't stop turning the ball over. Now, you have to believe that's been a point of emphasis here, but if the offensive line is worse, is it going to be harder for them to score as effectively as they did last year? I would think it would be. And Ben Johnson, he was probably in all likelihood a better caller and designer and game planner than what they're getting now. All due respect to John Morton, there's a reason Ben Johnson was the most sought after candidate on the head coaching market twice and is no longer the OC of the Detroit Lions. And there's a reason John Morton has never had that opportunity. Doesn't mean the NFL is right, but John Morton's been a coach for a long time. The Packers offense has to be ready to go blow for blow with the Philadelphia Eagles, with the Detroit Lions. And I go back to, this is where I was going. I go back to that Eagles game last year. Young team, expectations, primetime island game in Brazil. Everyone watching, whole league watching. And if it weren't for, a conservative call here or there from Matt LaFleur and a missed kick, the Packers might have won that game against the eventual Super Bowl champions, but they came out firing. It wasn't all clean, but they found a way on offense to get after what turned out to be the best defense in the NFL. They can start out hot. They can come out in week one and score 30 points against this Detroit Lions defense. A defense, by the way, that will not have Alim McNeil, Levi Onwuzurike, Malcolm Rodriguez, is incorporating a new starting corner, is incorporating a new play caller. And Aiden Hutchinson, the last time we saw him play football was incredible, but he had a devastating leg injury. And he hasn't played football in a long time. Is he just going to be ready to go and play 85% of snaps? Is he going to be the same player he was the last time we saw him? We don't know. We've seen injuries like this have deleterious impacts on players, and even really good players, even freak athlete players. So the most important thing for the Packers is that Jordan Love, Jaden Reed, Aaron Banks, Dontae Makes, those guys, the guys that they want out there when it matters, are ready to go. You want your full complement of weapons against this Lions team because you're going to, the Packers, if the Packers win in week one, it will be because they scored 27 points. They're not going to win some 24-17 or 24-21 kind of game. I just don't see that. This has 2011 Packers Saints kind of vibes. You win a game 38-35. That could be the kind of situation we're talking about. Now, maybe these teams, all the flux for the Lions and then the Packers, some of the injuries blunt their effectiveness early on. I guess I could see that. But these are both the kind of teams that I expect to just hit the ground running, which means and by the way, we're not even in practice week yet. The Packers don't play this weekend. They play next weekend. So we're still, almost 10 days out from the Packers having to play. Getting these guys back now gives them time to work back into shape. You hope that Jaden Reed by, the middle of next week, by this time next week, is running without pain. Maybe he isn't. Maybe he won't be. Maybe he won't be for a while. Maybe it won't be until the mini bye. They play Sunday night, then they play Thursday, and then so you get the mini bye. Maybe that rest at that point in his recovery is what he's going to need. Maybe he won't be right all season. Maybe he'll be in a Micah Parsons trade. Okay. We'll talk about Micah Parsons next on Locked On Packers. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. We got through preseason. College football is here. Whether you've got your eye on a big name quarterback or a breakout running back, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in the game. They've got a cool promotion called Weekly Flyer. So for this weekend, PrizePicks is offering max discounts on a couple players. You go into the app, you find them, and it's basically you can get the over if they pass for, say, 1 yard. I mean, come on. They're gonna pass for the 1 yard. Go do it. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play that first 5. PrizePicks, run your game. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. So I want to find a way to talk about this in a way that is respectful and ethical in some form or fashion. But I'll start here because Brian Gutekunst was asked and said, I can't speak about specific players, but anytime, you have a chance, if there's an opportunity, if we think it's going to make our football team better, it's something we'll explore. That usual canned answer. And another canned answer that I never believe in being one player away. It's always the holistic approach. And the Packers generally avoid these sorts of all-in moves, pushing all the chips in, because what happens if you push all the chips in? If you lose all the chips. And then it got to this, there are these questions about, okay, is there pressure on Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst? And, there was some fanning of those flames yesterday. And I find that all to be complete nonsense, complete and utter nonsense. Ed Policy is not making decisions that push Brian Gutekunst to go get Micah Parsons. Ed Policy, we've talked about this on this show, is not coming in and saying, hey, you guys are on notice. Give me a freaking break. When the Packers extended Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur last time, it was in 2022, after 3 straight, absolutely diabolical playoff losses. And the worst one, I think one of the worst Packers losses of modern Packers football. And Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur had 1 year left on their deal, respectively, and they each got extensions after that, despite the playoff failure. So the idea that the Packers they're playing for their livelihoods here, in an alternate universe where Jordan Love and most of this team is healthy for most of the season, and they win 7 games or 6 games, yes, maybe you would make them go into a lame duck season. I don't think that that's a realm of possibilities. If Jordan Love is relatively healthy, Matt LaFleur is the whole point is that Matt LaFleur is a good enough coach, and this team is good enough that that's just not really in the range of outcomes. Now, if the whole team gets banged up, yes, I could see that, but that's the interesting thing. You go back and you look at last year, The 49ers, oh, they had injuries. Yeah, well, they did. But they're more susceptible to injuries because they're more top heavy than the Packers. Oh, if Christian McCaffrey's not healthy all season and Brandon Ayuk is not healthy all season, and you have some defensive players atrophy and others who are not healthy, this defense, I don't know if the defense is going to get much better, even healthy. Yeah, all of a sudden you're a 6-7 win team. But they also, I don't believe, have a quarterback that can elevate them the way Jordan Love can. I thought Brock Purdy played admirably last year. But in a year where George Kittle was as good as he's ever been, when Juwan Jennings has a career year, you still have Kyle Shanahan. Jordan Love was better by all the metrics. So I just think the Packers are in a better position to weather a storm like that if there's a storm to weather. There's a lot of speculation about the Packers and do they have an offer on the table and financial compensation and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because I just don't think it's useful. It is mostly that it's rumor, it's innuendo, it's speculation. Here's what we know about the situation as it currently stands. There was a conversation at some point in the spring between Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons. A contract, and this is not, this is stipulated by Parsons. A contract in principle was agreed to. Jerry Jones seems to believe that's all that needed to happen. Now, that contract, it sounds like, was below market. And then multiple contracts since then have raised the market. It was in the mid 30s and now, market value contract would put him at 43, 44, 45 million dollars annually. And I've already, heard from fans who are like, that's too much money for Micah Parsons. Probably not. I know that number seems huge. The cap keeps going up. He is one of the best defensive players in the league. The Cowboys defense, when he plays, number 1 in EPA per play. When he doesn't, they're a bottom 5 defense by EPA per play. That's how impactful Micah Parsons is on the game of football. He is one of the true difference makers in the NFL, one of the best non-quarterbacks in the NFL, deserves to get paid like one of the best non-quarterbacks in the NFL. If Brian Gutekunst thought he could get Micah Parsons, I think he'd be willing to pay Micah Parsons $45 million a year. Remember, he paid Aaron Rodgers twice at the top of the market. Not near, at the top of the market. For quarterbacks, the most expensive players on the field, paid David Bakhtiari at the top of the market. Offensive tackle is pretty expensive. Paid Jair Alexander at the top of the market. Cornerbacks, very expensive. And though it was too little too late because the agreements had broke down, or the talks had broken down. Remember that Russ Ball is involved in this too. They offered a top of market deal for Devontae Adams. It's not like this team is not going to pay top of market money for top of market players. What they're not going to do is pay top or near top of market money for non-top of market players, and that gets you in big trouble. And they've also been very, very good about identifying who has not yet played like a top of market player, but could be. Zadarius Smith, for example. Xavier McKinney, for example. They paid those guys a lot relative to what they had produced. And for the Packers, they were top of market type players. Xavier McKinney was first team all pro last year. When Zadarius Smith, at his peak for the Green Bay Packers, he was one of the 5 to 8 best pass rushers in football. So they were right to pay him that money. When the Packers see something they like, they will go buy it. They are not as price sensitive as they are accused of. But Micah Parsons is saying he's hurt. The Cowboys say he's clean. He can play. There's already a grievance over what the 5th-year option should be, defensive end, linebacker. Jerry Jones thinks that the agent told him to stick the contract offer up his ass. That's Jerry Jones' quote. David Mulligetta, also Jordan Love's agent, has categorically denied having said that. That's basically the full length of what we know to be true. Micah Parsons reportedly getting a second opinion on the back. And my thing on that is, if you wanted to lie about a back injury, do you know how many unscrupulous lawyers there would be in the Dallas-Fort Worth area who'd be willing for Micah Parsons to say he's hurt? Like, do you guys understand how shady some of that stuff can be? Like, I got hit by a car once upon a time in Manhattan. And in New York, there is what's called no fault. And so it doesn't matter who's at fault. The person who actually made impact of the accident, their insurance covers everything up to a point. And then the insurance says, okay, you're done. You're fine now. We don't have to pay. And what I had to do is I had to go to a doctor that is what is basically a patient mill. They come in, they examine me, they say, you're fine. Insurance gets to say, we don't pay for you anymore. Even though my scans were not clean, like I was not fine. I was still in pain. I was not fine, but the doctor said, no, you're fine. They don't have to pay for your treatment anymore. Like that's out there. It would not be hard to find an expert. Jarrett, you don't think with the resources that the NFLPA has or David Mulugeta has, they couldn't find someone somewhere to say he's hurt, that he had to get on a plane and go somewhere? Come on now. That's shenanigans to me. The more to the point, though, I just don't know if the Packers are willing to go all in that way and pay the money. I think they would pay the money. And I think for the right player, they would make the trade. It's why the Khalil Mack trade made sense. I still think this could make sense for the Packers. And I do think it is in keeping with their team building philosophy, because Micah Parsons, is 26 years old. This is right in the wheelhouse. If Micah Parsons were a free agent, Brian Gutekunst would try and sign him. Now, how much are you willing to give up? And is Jerry Jones willing to actually make that trade? I think that's the hardest thing to judge at this point. It's why I'm not going to try and do it. If you want to have more of this discussion, we talked about it more on the Squad Show. That should be in your feed. Check that out. Remember, every Wednesday, 7:15 Lambeau time for that. Now, let's get back to players actually on the Green Bay Packers. I thought we did a very good job predicting what this practice squad would look like. We'll talk about the players that made it next on Locked On Packers. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average, in about 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL is almost here, baby. And FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. The Packers, favorites in week 1. And by the way, those conference odds have been dropping. I saw them at, I think, 14-1 a couple months ago, the 11-1. They're now in that 9-1 range. They were 9-1 last time I checked. The third shortest odds to win the NFC, behind only the Eagles and the Lions. Maybe you want to throw $5 on that, though you'd have to, wait for the payout on that. Maybe you want to try something more like Packers -1.5, because you get that instant gratification if the Packers win, because it's happening right now. So you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. For some of the misses that we had on the 53-man roster projection, we pretty much nailed our discussion about this practice squad. Izzy Abanikanda Ibanakanda is someone I really liked. I still like. I think he could be a call-up. I think he could be a kick returner. They don't need a kick returner, though, because Mecole Hardman, that's the big surprise to me. Mecole Hardman is back on the Packers practice squad. That seems like an automatic week 1 call-up. He's going to be their returner right away, and maybe for the foreseeable future. I still don't know why Savion Williams has not gotten into that race, especially because he's not going to be a huge part of the offense in, a down-to-down sense this year. I don't know why you wouldn't see what you have there, especially given the rule changes on special teams with the new kickoff rules. Just something to maybe keep an eye on there. Desmond Alexander. I told you I really like it. I don't know what it is, but he's back on the practice squad. Now we talked about the safeties, okay? Who of the safeties and the defensive backs are they going to keep? Well, they kept both of Jalen Simpson and Jonathan Baldwin, who are each kind of hybrid players, played some corner and played some safety in their careers. So it's like, okay, where can you put them? Maybe a little bit of everywhere. And that's how the Packers want to play this thing defensively. Brant Banks was someone I said by name, this is the top, I think I said, the top offensive line guy that I would have my eye on if I were the Packers. Played really well in pass protection. He's your new developmental player. Now, he's not Caleb Jones. He's not Kadeem Telfort in terms of size. And so he's not the physical oddity and marvel that those guys were. But that doesn't mean that there's not something to be excited for here when it comes to a developmental type prospect. And he, again, it's on tape. He is tall, 6'7", but not like 6'7", 380, which I guess would be cool if he were. Okay, there's more, but wait, there's more. The one place we got this wrong was at receiver. I thought Cornelius Johnson, Julian Hicks, I thought they had a really good chance to come back on this roster. Now, maybe Mecole Hardman, affected that, but they brought back Will Shepherd and Isaiah Nair. They barely saw Isaiah Nair. So that's an interesting one here. And they must have just liked the special teams upside, the size, speed, and all that stuff. Will Shepherd did show some nice things on family night early in that first preseason game. They seem to like that. But I'm pretty surprised that Julian Hicks and Cornelius Johnson were not the players that they were looking to bring back there. Maybe that just came down to opportunity elsewhere. I think if you're a Packers receiver coming back here, I think Mecole Hardman obviously understood he was going to get a returner role out of this. And then Nair and Shepherd are the kinds of players who probably have to really not look a gift horse in the mouth. Like if the Packers want to bring you back on the practice squad, the fact that there is no clear path for you coming to the team is not the problem that it might be if you were somewhere else. And if you were a player with maybe a higher profile or, more pedigree or something like that. So this may have been the best chance that they had to stick on an NFL team. Another one of the surprises to me, Christian Welch, like he had the chance to come back last year, chose to go elsewhere, and came back, still didn't make the final 53. So to have him on the practice squad, I think is frankly a coup for the Packers. Now they did add Ben Niemann to the actual roster, special teams linebacker. So, that's his spot, isn't it? That's interesting that that's what they ended up doing, and that Welch ended up taking it. Presumably he understood that, like, hey, this is not, we're not going to carry 4 linebackers anymore. So you got to understand, be patient. Okay. It's good for the Packers. I think Christian Welch is a nice player. I think he's a nice special teams player. It's good for Green Bay, right? I was a little surprised the defensive line underrepresented here. James Esther, one of the only players, Aaron Mosby. And it may be the case. I thought maybe Barron Sorrell would hit IR and one of these guys would get moved up. That didn't happen. That's good news. Savion Williams didn't hit IR. Seems like those guys avoided any sort of big time injury. So, I don't think we have to get super excited about what's happening here. One player I'm excited, I wish we would have had a chance to see him in the preseason, is Clayton Tune, was Tank Dell and Matthew Golden's quarterback at Houston. And our pal Jason Hirschhorn over at The Leap and America's guest here on Locked On Packers, he has put together the system. He has figured out what Brian Gutekunst, going back to Ron Wolf, what they like, what they have preferences in their models with quarterbacks. Clayton Tune, a green light Packers quarterback type. Jacob Morley does the same thing, looks more at physical traits and attributes. Clayton Tune, tier 1. One of only 3, I believe, tier 1 draftable quarterbacks in that 2023 draft. This is exactly the kind of developmental player that the Packers like. And Jason has, by the way, looked at the numbers and found that the developmental players that have the traits that the Packers tend to like also tend to hit at a higher rate. So whether this guy can be the next Malik Willis in terms of being a capable backup for you, we'll see. Unfortunately, for as right as Jason was about that, he does his UDFA prospectus every year. He went 3 for 4. And the one guy he didn't get was the quarterback, El Gersma. But it's, I think, partially because they had this opportunity with Tune. So a great opportunity for Tune to be QB2 for the. I think he could be QB2 for the Packers as early as 2026. Back tomorrow as we get you ready for week 1. There's no games. So we don't have to do anything special tomorrow. Maybe we'll get an interview. Maybe we'll do something fun for Friday. And we didn't do Summer Fridays this year. I've been talking to our pal John Owning, going back to my fan rag days. Oh my God, blast from the past there. About having him come on and talk Baron Sorrell. It's a bummer that Baron Sorrell is hurt, but I still, if we can get a chance to do that, maybe we do that. He's also a Cowboys guy. Maybe we talk a little Micah Parsons. That could be fun. We'll figure that out coming up here on Locked On Packers. Follow me on the social medias, Peter_Bukowski on X, on Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube so you can stay Locked On Packers.